days of communism and the Cold War, came to America with my mom when I was 6 years old. And that experience shaped me in all kinds of ways. I often tell people, especially when I'm talking to kids, that the first time I took the oath of office, swearing to protect and defend the Constitution, was not when I got elected to Congress, it was when I was 10 years old, taking the oath of citizenship. It's the same oath, the same words. And as a kid, it meant a lot to me. I really just embraced this whole idea of becoming an American in every possible way, memorizing the Declaration of Independence and memorizing the baseball encyclopedia. Those two things I thought were, if I got those two things right, that I'd be all American. And I'm not a career politician. The first time I ran for anything was 2018, but I am a career public servant. So most of my career was spent mostly in Washington, D.C., working for the U.S. State Department. I ultimately ended up as the Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy and Human Rights around the world under the Obama administration. I was at the White House under President Clinton. For some years, I was the head of the Washington office of Human Rights Watch, a wonderful organization that fights for freedom and human dignity all around the world and in the United States as well. The big fight we had when I was there, I guess the biggest of many, was taking on the Bush administration when we were torturing people at Guantanamo Bay. And we teamed up, I personally teamed up with John McCain, above all others, to pass the legislation that put an end to that nonsense and brought us back in line with the values that our men and women in uniform around the world fight for and defend every single day. So I never thought I'd be here in Fanwood talking about a congressional race until very recently. And obviously what happened was, well, something happened in 2016 in our country. Something changed. It wasn't that a Republican won and I'm a Democrat. I don't. Yes, I prefer people in my party to win than the other party, but that's not what made me decide to completely change my life. It was the nature of that administration. It was a much deeper and more fundamental and scary change in American politics. And I felt like I wanted to do something practical about it. I didn't want to just sit back and complain and write articles that all my Democratic friends would read and say, "Oh, Tom, you're so right." I wanted to do something practical. And so what I did was to come back to New Jersey, where I'd grown up after we emigrated from Poland, and threw myself into a congressional race in the 7th District. As you heard, the previous occupant was Congressman Lance, a Republican, and had been in Republican hands for decades. But we felt like things were changing, and a lot of people were seeing that they could make a difference on a national level by getting involved in the congressional campaign. And so we worked incredibly hard. My God, it was so intensive, that race. We knocked on more than 500,000 doors in the district. In fact, we stopped counting at 500,000, so I don't even know what the final number was. The race had national attention from both sides. And after all that hard work, obviously, we won. 2 years later, we had to do it all over again. We had to run another incredibly hard race. It turned out that my district in 2020 was the only district in the state of New Jersey that the Republicans contested seriously. And by that, I mean they had candidates everywhere, but it was the only district where they spent any money, by a factor of 4 or 5 to 1, compared to any other district.